The first explosion wasn't a real one. It was digital, a cascade of red alerts lighting up across Damian Vale's glass-walled office, each warning more urgent than the last. His company's servers, the heart of Vale Tech Industries, were under siege. Damian leaned forward, fingers tapping the desk, eyes narrowing as he read the code streaming across the holographic display. He'd built systems to protect governments, corporations, entire cities. Yet now, someone had breached his own. He spoke without looking up. Trace the IP. Find out who's doing this. His head of cybersecurity stammered over the line. Sir, we can't. The attack's masked behind multiple relays. It's Black Cipher, Damian finished grimly. The name hung in the air like smoke. The infamous hacker collective that had taken down banks, military networks, even intelligence agencies. And now they were coming for him. Outside, the night skyline shimmered through his penthouse window, a maze of light and glass. For the first time in years, Damian felt something that didn't fit into his world of data and control. A flicker of unease. Across the city, Agent Elena Kade was watching. From the rooftop of a neighboring building, her scope tracked the man behind the tinted glass. The CEO looked calm, too calm, for someone moments away from being digitally gutted. Her earpiece crackled. Agent Kade. Authorization confirmed. You're cleared to make contact. Protect the target. But remember, he can't know who you are. Understood, she replied. Her tone was smooth, steady, detached, like the click of a safety being disengaged. Elena was a shadow in black tactical gear, her face half covered by a comms visor. She'd spent the last 3 months hunting Black Cipher, and now, for reasons above her clearance level, she was assigned to guard the one man they wanted most. She didn't like it. Protection was messy, personal, emotional. And Elena Kade didn't do emotional. Minutes later, the elevator to Damian's penthouse chimed. He looked up, frowning. No one should have had access. The doors opened. A woman stepped out, silent as a ghost. Mr. Vale, she said, her voice low but clear. You're in danger. His hand moved instinctively toward his desk drawer, where a concealed pistol rested, but she raised a badge before he could reach it. Government contract, she said simply. Temporary assignment. I'm here to ensure your safety. From what? She looked at the glowing wall of code still flashing red. From everyone who wants to see you destroyed, and from your own curiosity. Their eyes met. Hers, cold steel. His, calculating fire. For a heartbeat, neither moved. Then Damian smiled, that disarming, arrogant smile the media loved so much. You're the mysterious bodyguard they sent me? I must have really made someone nervous. Elena's lips twitched. Not quite a smile. You have no idea. Outside, the city lights flickered. A second digital explosion ripped through Vale Tech's systems, plunging entire networks into chaos. Elena's hand went to her comm. They've breached deeper than expected. We move now. Move where? Damian demanded. To keep you alive, she said. And to keep my identity buried. As alarms blared, she grabbed his wrist and pulled him toward the emergency exit. And for the first time, Damian Vale, the man who trusted no one, let himself be led into the dark. The city felt different from inside a moving armored vehicle. Silent, except for the hum of the engine and the rhythmic tapping of Elena's fingers on the dashboard. Damian sat rigidly in the passenger seat, his gaze flicking between the streetlights and the shadowed alleyways, as though he expected Black Cipher to emerge from the darkness at any moment. You trust them too much, he said finally, breaking the tense silence. Elena didn't glance at him. I trust myself. That's enough. Damian smirked. Ah, the mysterious bodyguard act. Always so confident. Makes me wonder what you're hiding. She finally looked at him, her eyes cold yet calculating. I'm hiding my real job. And the fact that if I tell you, you'll complicate everything. Damian's smirk faltered. Complicate everything, huh? You've clearly never met me. She pressed a button, and the vehicle's exterior lights dimmed to a faint, ghostly glow. Maybe I have. Maybe I know exactly how you behave under pressure. Exactly what you'll do if you think you're in control. The words hit him harder than he expected. Damian wasn't used to people reading him. He wasn't used to people making him feel exposed. You're confident, he said carefully, leaning back in his seat. Almost too confident. Elena's expression softened ever so slightly, but only for a fraction of a second. "Experience," she replied curtly. "Now, stay quiet until we reach the safe house." The safe house was tucked into the city's forgotten industrial district, a windowless, steel-reinforced bunker with a network of decoy cameras and encrypted communication channels. Damian's first impression was, of course, admiration, the kind reserved for things engineered to perfection. "This place is impressive," he admitted, scanning the cold metallic interior. Elena didn't answer, instead moving toward a wall panel that slid open with a soft hiss, revealing monitors filled with security feeds from every angle of the building. "Impressive?" she repeated dryly. "You're about to be trapped in the safest building in the city, and your first comment is about aesthetics?" Damian grinned, leaning casually against a console. "Well, I like to appreciate fine engineering, even when someone else built it." Elena gave a small, almost imperceptible sigh. "Focus. Black Cipher doesn't just hit once. They'll probe, they'll test every weak link. You need to understand that even here, you're not entirely safe." He tilted his head, studying her. "And you are." "I am the weak link," she said flatly. "But I'm also the only one between you and them." The words lingered in the air. Damian felt an unfamiliar tug of curiosity, respect, something he rarely allowed himself to feel for anyone. Hours passed as the night deepened. Damian watched Elena move with precision, setting up security protocols, monitoring traffic, and scanning every anomaly. He had worked with top-level intelligence contractors, yet even he felt the weight of her competence. Finally, Damian broke the silence. "You never talk about yourself," he said quietly. "Not your life, your past, your name." Her fingers froze mid-command. "That's not relevant," she replied sharply, but not harshly. "I think it's relevant," he insisted, his voice lower now. "I've spent my life hiding behind work, numbers, and security. You're the first person I've met who makes me want to ask." Elena looked at him for a long moment, her eyes scanning his face as if weighing the danger of revealing herself against the pull of something she hadn't felt in years. "I'm not who you think I am," she said finally. "And yet," Damian countered, a faint smile tugging at his lips, "you've already saved my life tonight. And I have a feeling you'll save it again tomorrow." The two of them shared a silence that was heavier than any threat outside. Outside, the city pulsed with danger, hackers plotting their next move, and alarms ready to erupt at any second. Inside, however, there was a fragile unspoken connection. Two people on opposite sides of duty and desire, yet drawn together by forces neither fully understood. And as the first warning pinged from Damian's laptop, another breach detected, Elena's hand instinctively went to his side, ready to protect. Not just from hackers. From everything. The night outside was quiet, almost unnervingly so. Inside the safe house, monitors blinked steadily, mapping the city in a grid of glowing dots. Damian couldn't help but pace, a habit he had honed over decades of high-stakes decision-making. "Elena," he said, voice low, "do you ever sleep?" She didn't look up from her console. "Not when I know someone is coming for you. Sleep can wait. Survival cannot." Damian smirked, though the humor didn't reach his eyes. "You make it sound like I'm fragile." "You are," she said flatly, then immediately turned to a flashing screen. "Fragile in the wrong hands." The warning pinged again, this time louder, insistent. Elena's fingers flew across the keyboard. The safehouse's alarms remained silent, a testament to her skill, but the red dot moving across the digital map told her everything she needed to know. "They're here," she murmured. Before Damian could react, the power flickered. Lights cut out. Darkness swallowed the safehouse, save for the emergency luminescent strips along the floor. Elena grabbed his arm. "Stay close. Move." Together, they moved through the dim corridors, shadows stretching long against the concrete walls. Damian's pulse raced, part adrenaline, part something unfamiliar and electric at the nearness of her. "Who are they?" he asked, whispering. "Black Cipher," Elena said. "And tonight, they're testing the limits of what I've set up. They want you exposed." A metallic click echoed down the hall, the sound of a door unlocking from the inside. Elena's eyes flicked toward the noise, scanning instinctively. "Go left," she whispered. "Now." They ducked into a small storage room. Damian's heart pounded as footsteps approached. The sound of high-tech equipment being tampered with made him grit his teeth. He had built systems stronger than this, yet even he knew there was nothing he could do in the shadows, not without Elena. She crouched low, hand on a concealed holster. "They're inside the perimeter," she said quietly. "Could be more than one. Could be anyone." Damian swallowed. He wanted to reach for her, to steady the tension in a way neither words nor systems could manage. But he obeyed, moving silently beside her. The first attacker breached the inner door, masked, agile, but unprepared for the shadow that Elena became. In a fluid motion, she disabled him, her hand moving faster than Damian's eyes could track. The man crumpled silently, unconscious but alive. Damian's jaw dropped. You're incredible." Elena didn't smile. "Focus. More will come." Sure enough, another figure appeared at the far end of the hole. Damian instinctively stepped in front of her. "I can help." "No," she said sharply, her voice cutting through the tension. "Stay behind me. Trust me." He hesitated, and in that moment, she moved, a blur of precision and control. The second intruder was down before he even realized what had happened. Damian exhaled sharply, feeling a surge of admiration and an uncomfortable warmth as he watched her move with lethal grace. "Are they all gone?" he asked, trying to mask the thrill in his voice. Elena scanned the room, then the monitors. "For now. But this was just a test. They're probing defenses. They'll return." Damian glanced at her, close enough now to feel the tension radiating from her. "Elena." She turned slightly, eyes locking with his. "Yes." He swallowed, words catching. "Thank you for keeping me alive." Her gaze softened, just a fraction, and for a fleeting moment, the air between them shifted. Not professional. Not just protector and target. Something unspoken, electric, undeniable. Then another alert blared, this time from the servers themselves. Black Cipher wasn't just testing defenses anymore. They were escalating. Elena's hand went instinctively to the keyboard. "We need to move faster. They're not done." And in the darkened safe house, with danger closing in on all sides, Damian realized he was no longer just a man in need of protection. He was dangerously aware of the woman who could move through shadows, save his life, and yet remain untouchable in every sense of the word. The city had settled into an uneasy quiet after the night raid, but inside the safe house, silence didn't mean safety. Damian sat at a corner console, staring at lines of breached code, trying to decipher the attack patterns. Every system he touched had a faint trace of intrusion, a digital fingerprint that screamed Black Cipher. Elena leaned against the wall, arms crossed, observing him. "You're still trying to fix it yourself," she said, tone neutral, though her eyes hinted at mild amusement. "I have to understand it," Damian replied sharply. "If they're capable of this, I need to know how they think, how they move. I can't just sit back and..." "Sit back." Elena cut in, stepping closer. Her gaze hardened. "You were almost killed tonight. You think learning their patterns changes that?" He blinked, startled by the intensity of her presence. You don't trust me?" "I trust nothing that's trying to destroy you," she said. Her voice was steady, but there was a tension in the air, the kind that made him aware of every inch of space between them. Damian leaned back, studying her. "Why do you keep yourself hidden? You saved my life tonight, and yet..." "I know nothing about you." Elena stiffened, as if he'd pressed against a carefully sealed wall. "Because you don't need to know," she said. "Don't need to know?" He let out a bitter laugh. "I know everything about my employees, my company, even my rivals. But you're a ghost. I don't even know if I can trust you, and yet, I have no choice but to." Elena's expression softened slightly, though she quickly masked it again. "Trust isn't something given lightly. It's earned." Damian's eyes narrowed, a dangerous curiosity lighting them. "Then what would it take for you to trust me?" For a long moment, she said nothing. The hum of the safe house, the occasional ping of a distant server alert, filled the room. And then she spoke, almost reluctantly. "Not tonight. Not here. But maybe, when the danger is gone, I'll tell you. If you survive it." The words were both a promise and a warning. Damian felt the unusual tug of intrigue and frustration. He wanted to know more. Needed to. Yet every instinct told him Elena's walls were stronger than anything he'd faced in his corporate life. Hours later, when the safe house settled into a tense quiet, Damian found himself unable to sleep. He wandered to the monitors, watching the city through digital overlays, noting the faintest signs of activity. "Elena," he said quietly, "do you ever wonder why they're after me? Not just Black Cipher, but anyone who wants Vale Tech? Why me personally?" She didn't turn. "You're a target because you're visible, because you're valuable. They don't care about the man. They care about what he represents." Damian's fingers drummed against the console. "But that doesn't explain why they're so precise. It's personal. And I have a feeling it's not just about me or my company." Elena's gaze finally met his. There was something unreadable in her eyes. A flicker of concern? Maybe even fear. "Be careful with that thought," she said quietly. "Some truths aren't meant to be uncovered too quickly." And yet, Damian felt the weight of it. Something was buried beneath the attacks, something deeper than corporate sabotage. And Elena, as much as she frustrated him, was the only one who could navigate the shadows and get him to the answers he needed. He stepped closer, almost unconsciously. "I feel like you're holding back from me. From everyone. What are you hiding, Elena?" Her breath caught, almost imperceptibly. "I'm hiding from myself," she admitted softly, the first crack in her armor. The room seemed to shrink, the distance between them suddenly charged. Damian wanted to reach out, to bridge the gap between curiosity and trust, but he didn't. Instead, he leaned against the console, silent, letting the moment linger. Outside, the city's lights flickered. Danger had not disappeared. Black Cipher was still out there, moving in the shadows. But inside the safe house, a new tension simmered, not of threat, but of unspoken connection. And Damian realized that surviving the hackers might be the easier part. Navigating the walls Elena had built around herself could be the real challenge. The sun had barely risen, but the safe house was already alive with the hum of alert systems. Damian sat hunched over his laptop, scanning code and logs, trying to trace the intrusion from the previous night. Every line of corrupted data made his jaw tighten. "Elena," he called without looking up. "They've escalated. Whoever they are, they've learned our layout. They're probing deeper into the systems than before." She appeared beside him, her presence immediate, calm, and sharp. "Good. That means we know their method. And it means they're predictable." "Partially." Damian exhaled sharply, rubbing his temple. "Predictable? Or cocky?" Her lips twitched in the faintest smirk. "You'd be surprised how often the two go hand in hand." Before he could respond, an alert flashed red across the monitors, multiple access points being triggered simultaneously. Elena's fingers flew across the keyboard, her eyes narrowing. They've moved from digital attacks to physical infiltration. Damian's heart raced. He'd survived boardroom battles, corporate espionage, even government-level cyber threats, but nothing had prepared him for the intensity of this moment. "Physical? How? Who?" "Elena." A voice crackled over the comm system. A member of the safe house security team had been caught off guard. There was a struggle, then silence. Without hesitation, Elena grabbed a concealed earpiece. "I've got it. Stay behind me." Damian's pulse quickened as he followed her through the shadowed corridors. He was aware of every movement she made. Precise, fluid, controlled. She was a storm in human form, and for the first time, Damian realized how exposed he had been relying on anyone else's protection. A door ahead clicked open. Two masked figures slipped in, their movements sharp but calculated. Elena's body tensed. With barely a whisper she struck, taking them down with a speed and precision that left Damian momentarily frozen in awe. When the echoes of impact faded, she turned to him. "Are you hurt?" "No," he said, his voice low but his chest still racing. You're incredible." "You're alive," she said simply. "That's what matters." But Damian's mind wasn't on survival. It was on her, the unspoken intensity between them, the way she moved, the way her eyes flickered with something he couldn't name. Something human beneath the lethal exterior. They moved to the central control room, where the monitors showed one of the intruders attempting to access critical files remotely. Elena leaned over the console, her fingers dancing across the keyboard. Damian, step back. You're in danger if you get involved now. He hesitated, torn between instinct and caution. I want to help, he said. You want to get yourself killed, she countered sharply, but her voice softened ever so slightly. And I won't let that happen. The tension between them thickened, charged not only by the threat outside but by the growing awareness of each other. Damian felt the pull, a dangerous attraction he hadn't felt in years. Finally, Elena secured the system. The intruder was locked out, neutralized, and the safe house returned to a tense calm. Damian exhaled, leaning against the console. I should have never doubted you. She glanced at him, a fleeting softness in her eyes. You don't doubt. You calculate. And right now, you're alive because you trusted me. For a moment, Damian saw the vulnerability she usually kept hidden. It wasn't weakness, it was honesty. And it drew him in, closer than he had expected. Outside, the city hummed with life, unaware of the night's near disaster. Inside, Damian realized something dangerous. He wasn't just reliant on Elena for survival anymore. He wanted her. Not just as a protector, but as someone who had unmasked a part of him he hadn't known existed. And Elena, standing mere feet away, felt it too. The subtle pull between duty and desire, between control and surrender. The night wasn't over. Black Cipher wasn't finished. But for the first time, Damian knew he was not facing the storm alone, and that knowledge, as terrifying as it was, carried a thrill he hadn't expected. Damian sat alone in the dim glow of the control room, staring at the screens that still showed faint traces of the night's attacks. His mind was tangled, part strategy, part frustration, part something he refused to name. Elena appeared in the doorway, her silhouette sharp against the soft light. You should rest, she said, though her voice lacked its usual edge. You've done enough thinking for one night. He didn't turn to look at her. I can't rest. Not while I don't know who you really are. Her eyes narrowed slightly. You mean, you want to know who's been saving your life while you sit there trying to be in control of things you barely understand? He finally turned, meeting her gaze. Exactly. I need to know who I'm trusting, because I'm beginning to realize I'm trusting more than just your skills. For a moment, Elena's posture stiffened, her arms tightening across her chest. Damian, some things are better left unknown. And some things, he said, stepping closer, are impossible to ignore. Her breath caught, but she didn't move away. Not yet. Damian's presence was magnetic, drawing her closer to a line she had spent years building around herself. She was trained to remain detached, unflinching, untouchable. Yet here she was, standing a mere arm's length away, feeling the pull she refused to acknowledge. I've been assigned to protect you, she said quietly. Not to be anything else. Not to get involved. And yet, he murmured, his voice low, I feel like you already are. Elena's eyes flicked away, landing on the monitors as though they could distract her from the tension charging the air. You're reading into things, she said, though her voice wavered slightly. Damian smiled faintly, moving another step closer. Am I? Or are you just not used to someone seeing you? Not just as a bodyguard. Her breath hitched, subtle but unmistakable. For a heartbeat, the professional mask slipped, revealing the human beneath the shadow. Damian saw it, and something shifted inside him. She began, then stopped, words caught between duty and desire. Outside, a siren blared faintly, the city's background noise reminding them that danger had not vanished. Elena's hand moved toward her calm, snapping back into the role of protector, but the tension between them lingered like smoke. Damian's voice softened. Elena, you can't always hide. Not from them and not from me. Her eyes met his, and for a fleeting second, the wall she had built around herself trembled. And what if I'm not who you think I am? Then I'll adapt, he said simply. I've spent my life adapting. I can adapt to you. Her lips twitched, almost a smile, almost a warning. Careful, Mr. Vale. You don't know what you're stepping into. Neither do you, he said, and the words were true in ways neither admitted. The monitors flickered, signaling another attempted breach, this time at a deeper level, more coordinated. Elena's professional instincts kicked in immediately, and she moved with fluid precision. Damian stepped back, letting her take the lead, but his eyes didn't leave her. As she secured the system, her focus absolute, Damian realized something dangerous. He was no longer just drawn to her by admiration or gratitude. He wanted to know everything about her. He wanted her trust, her honesty, maybe even her heart. And Elena, watching him from across the console, felt the pull as well. Between duty and desire, between life and danger, the line they were crossing was becoming impossible to ignore. Outside, Black Cipher continued their silent attack, unaware that the most unpredictable threat wasn't coming from a keyboard or a server. It was coming from the space between them. Inside the safe house, two people stood dangerously close to crossing lines that neither of them could afford to cross. Yet both knew, with a thrill and a warning, that they might not be able to resist. The morning sun slanted across Damian Vale's penthouse, but the warmth of daylight brought little comfort. Damian sat at his desk, scanning encrypted files that had been subtly altered overnight. Something wasn't right. The patterns didn't match the typical Black Cipher behavior. "Elena," he said, not looking up. "They've gone personal. Whoever did this isn't just after the company anymore. They're targeting me. Everything I care about." She appeared silently behind him, her presence as commanding as ever. "Show me." He handed her the tablet. Images of his home, his private office, even surveillance of his sister in another city flickered across the screen. Damian's stomach knotted as he realized how deep the invasion ran. "They're mapping my life," he muttered. "Not just my work. My family, my routines. Everything." Elena's jaw tightened. "That's the escalation I feared. They're forcing mistakes, trying to lure you out, force you into action. And they're bold. Very bold." Damian's eyes met hers. "Then we stop them. Nah. No more waiting, no more shadows." Elena's gaze lingered on him, calculating and intense. "Do you understand what you're asking? This isn't corporate sabotage anymore. If we move wrong, people die, including you." "I'm already a target," Damian said firmly. "I want to fight back. With you." Her eyes flickered at the word "you." Damian noticed the brief hesitation, the shift in her stance. She wasn't just a protector anymore. The stakes were personal now, for both of them. Hours later, the safe house was a storm of monitors, alarms, and flashing alerts. Elena had coordinated every line of defense, isolating intruders, patching every breach, but Damian insisted on staying at her side. "You're taking too many risks," she said sharply. "I can handle it alone." "Maybe," Damian replied, his gaze steady, "but this is my life too. I need to be part of it." Her lips pressed into a thin line, but she didn't argue further. Instead, she handed him a keyboard and guided his hands through a digital countermeasure. It was the first time he had ever worked beside someone in true life-or-death combat against a cyber threat. The tension between them was electric. Part adrenaline, part unspoken emotion. Damian realized he was no longer just drawn to her skill, but to the presence behind it, the woman who had kept him alive and who now stood mere inches away. Suddenly, alarms shrieked. A direct breach was occurring. Someone had infiltrated his personal home network, bypassing even Elena's defenses. "They're in," she said sharply, moving to the secondary console. "They want you distracted while they attack elsewhere. You stay here. Now." "I'm not staying behind," Damian said, rising. She grabbed his arm, her grip firm. "You will stay behind or you die. Do you understand?" For a long moment, he stared at her, measuring the force in her eyes. And then he nodded, silently conceding, but his gaze didn't leave hers. Something unspoken passed between them, trust, but also a thrill neither had admitted. Elena moved with precision, isolating the breach and countering the hacker's moves. Damian watched, heart pounding not only from the tension of the attack but from the intensity of being so close to her. She was lethal, beautiful, untouchable, and yet somehow human, more than she would ever admit. Finally, the monitors stabilized. The attack was contained, the intruders locked out, and the immediate threat neutralized. Damian exhaled, muscles tense, and turned toward her. "You did it," he said quietly. She looked at him, eyes shadowed but holding something unspoken. "We did it. But don't think this is over. They're learning. They'll be back." He stepped closer, drawn by something he couldn't resist. "And we'll be ready," he said. For a fleeting moment, the danger faded, leaving only the charged silence between them. The pull of proximity, the thrill of survival, and the undeniable tension of unspoken feelings made the air between them heavier than any threat outside. And as the city outside thrummed with life, Damian realized the truth he had tried to deny. Surviving Black Cipher might be impossible without her, but resisting the pull between them could be even harder. Night fell over the city like a heavy curtain, and the safe house, despite its reinforced walls and state-of-the-art security, seemed unusually vulnerable. Damian paced the control room, restless and uneasy. The events of the day had pushed him to the edge, but it wasn't just the attacks, it was Elena. She had been silent for most of the evening, focused, precise, untouchable. And yet, every time her gaze met his, Damian felt a pull he couldn't ignore. "Elena," he said quietly, breaking the tense silence, "I need to know. Who are you? Not the agent. Not the protector. The real you." She froze mid-keystroke, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. Slowly, deliberately, she turned to face him. "You don't want to know," she said softly, almost pleading. "Try me," he challenged, taking a step closer. Elena's eyes flicked to the monitors, then back to him. For the first time, the mask of the professional operative slipped. Her shoulders tensed, her voice lowering. "I'm not just an agent assigned to protect you. I've been tracking Black Cipher for years. They aren't just a hacker group, they're connected to people who've hurt me, personally. And they've decided you're a convenient target." Damian's breath caught. "You've been, what? Hunting them for years? Alone?" Her nod was almost imperceptible. "Alone. Until now. And that's why I can't let anyone, not even you, know everything about me. Not yet." He studied her, the tension between them thickening. "And yet, you trusted me tonight. You let me see the edges of you." Elena's eyes softened for a fleeting second, then hardened again. "I trusted you to survive, Damian. That's all." The room was quiet for a moment, the hum of the safe house and distant city sounds filling the space between them. Damian felt a dangerous pull toward her, a mix of admiration, desire, and curiosity. "You're human beneath the armor," he said. "And I don't want to stay on the other side of it anymore." Her breath hitched, almost imperceptibly. "Damian." Before she could finish, alarms blared across the monitors. Black Cipher had launched another strike. More sophisticated, more precise, and aimed directly at Damian's personal networks. Elena's professional instinct snapped back immediately. "They're escalating again. We don't have much time." She moved with lethal efficiency, fingers dancing across the keyboard, isolating the intrusion, securing files, and deploying countermeasures. Damian watched, torn between stepping back and stepping closer. "You're incredible," he said quietly, unable to resist. She glanced at him, and for the first time, Damian saw vulnerability behind the steel, a glimmer of the person she had shielded for so long. "I don't have the luxury of being anything else," she said softly. The attack was finally contained, and the safe house returned to tense silence. Damian exhaled, walking toward her. "You could have died tonight," he said quietly. "And I can't just let that happen. Not again." Elena looked at him, eyes shadowed and conflicted. "I survive because I have to. Because it's my choice." He reached out, hesitant but determined. "Maybe you don't have to survive alone anymore. Maybe you don't have to hide from me." For a heartbeat, the world outside, the danger, the hacker attacks, everything seemed to fade. All that remained was the charged space between them. The pull, the tension, the unspoken connection that had been building for days now threatening to ignite. Elena's hand twitched, almost reaching for his, then she turned away, masking her emotions behind professional composure. "Tomorrow," she said softly. "We deal with the next attack tomorrow." Damian watched her retreat, a mixture of frustration and admiration tightening in his chest. He didn't know what her secrets were or how deep they ran, but he knew one thing. He was drawn to her in a way he couldn't resist, and that danger and desire were now inseparably intertwined. Outside, Black Cipher was plotting their next move. Inside, Damian and Elena were on the precipice of something far more unpredictable, something neither had planned for, but both were powerless to deny. The city's skyline burned with the faint glow of early morning as alarms shrieked throughout the safe house. Black Cipher had struck again, and this time, it wasn't just digital. Someone had breached the perimeter, bypassing Elena's defenses with unnerving precision. Damian's heart pounded as he raced toward the control room, where Elena was already at the consoles, eyes sharp and hands moving like lightning. The quiet composure she usually held was gone, replaced with intensity that mirrored his own rising panic. "They're inside," she said without looking at him, her voice clipped but trembling just slightly. "I need you to stay behind me." "I'm not staying behind," Damian said firmly. "Not when they're this close." "Not when—" He stopped, realizing he couldn't finish the thought without admitting too much. Elena's eyes flicked toward him, reading the unsaid words, and for a moment, Damian saw the wall she had built crumble just enough for him to glimpse the person underneath the agent. "You're reckless," she said softly. "And lucky." "No," he countered, taking a step closer. "I'm standing here because we," he trailed off, the words failing to capture the pull between them. Before he could finish, the monitors flashed red. Intruders at the entry points. Elena grabbed his arm, and together they moved through the shadowed corridors. Damian's pulse raced, not just from the threat outside, but from the closeness of her, the electricity of proximity he couldn't deny. They rounded a corner, and the attackers appeared. 3 masked figures armed with weapons, moving with calculated aggression. Elena reacted instantly, taking down one with precise force. Damian ducked, his instincts kicking in, grabbing a metal rod from nearby and fending off another. "Damian!" Elena shouted, kicking the final intruder to the ground. She turned to him, eyes blazing. "You have to trust me now." He nodded, adrenaline sharpening his focus. Together, they neutralized the remaining threats, the coordinated movement between them seamless, almost instinctual. Damian realized then that this wasn't just about survival. It was about trust, partnership, and an unspoken bond that had been growing all along. Once the immediate threat was contained, Elena collapsed onto a chair, breathing heavily. Damian stood over her, watching, aware of the tension in every line of her body. "Elena, you could have been hurt," he said quietly. "I wasn't," she replied, her voice soft but unwavering. "Not while you were here." Something in Damian shifted. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Elena, I don't care about protocols, about secrets, or what your job demands. You're not ready for all of it," she interrupted gently, though the softness in her eyes betrayed her words. "Not yet. But I'll tell you everything. After this is over. You need to survive first." He closed the distance, placing a hand lightly on her arm. "Then we survive together. No more hiding. No more walls." For the first time, she allowed herself a small, unguarded smile. "Together," she agreed, the single word carrying weight beyond anything she had ever admitted. Outside, the city breathed unknowingly, but Black Cipher was far from finished. Their final strike was coming, targeting Damian's company headquarters with devastating precision. Elena activated a secure comm line, coordinating a counterstrike that combined cyber defense, government backup, and Damian's own intimate knowledge of his systems. The battle was tense, fast, and unforgiving. Every move counted. Every second mattered. And yet, amid the chaos, Damian and Elena moved as one. Synchronized, unyielding, alive to the danger and to each other. Finally, the last attack was neutralized. The monitors stabilized. The safe house fell silent, except for the shallow shared breaths of 2 people who had faced death together and survived. Damian turned toward her. "Now I know who you are," he said quietly. "Not just the agent. Not just the protector. You're everything I need to trust. And more." Elena's eyes softened, the final barrier falling. "And now you know me," she whispered. "The real me." They stood there, close enough to feel each other's warmth, hearts pounding, aware that the storm outside had tested more than just their skills. It had tested their trust, their courage, and the undeniable connection between them. In that moment, amid the aftermath of danger, Damian and Elena realized the truth neither had expected. Survival was only half the battle. The other half was surrendering to what they had been denying all along. And for the first time they allowed themselves to do exactly that. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more original novel stories. And stay tuned, our next story is coming soon.